Coming up, fears of yet more strikes as nurses look set to reject a pay deal. The 21-year-old in a US court on espionage charges. And Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson think they could be brothers. The full story after the break. Two parents found guilty of killing their 10-month-old child. Finley Bowden died on Christmas Day after suffering a catalogue of appalling abuse.
It's horrific what has happened to what was a defenceless 10-month-old baby. Only his skull and his left arm didn't have fractures.
Also this lunchtime, the NHS faces the threat of yet more strike action. ITV News has learned that in the next few hours, members of the Royal College of Nursing are expected to reject the government's latest pay offer.
Ultimately for me, I just didn't feel like the offer was good enough. I actually thought it was a little bit insulting, given everything that we've done over the last 3 years.
An American 21-year-old is expected in court over the biggest leak of classified information in a decade. Plus... It's blast off for the Jupiter Moon's mission. And...
What you think I'd be doing over here? You're not around, Marty. What's our problem?
On screen, they're detectives. Off screen, Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson think they could be brothers.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Lucy Watson.
Good afternoon. In the last half an hour, Shannon Marsden and Stephen Bowden have been convicted at Derby Crown Court of the Christmas Day murder of their baby son. Finley Bowden was just 10 months old. When he died, he was found to have 130 appalling injuries. He was removed from his parents' care shortly after he was born, but was handed back to them by social services just 39 days before his death. Sarah Corker now reports.
Once a happy, playful baby boy, this was recorded before social services returned Finley Bowden to his parents. They made his short life a misery, subjecting him to severe violence. His father, Stephen Bowden, described as pure evil. His mother, Shannon Marsden, a pathological liar. On Christmas Eve 2020, the couple were shopping in Chesterfield. After weeks of beatings, Finley was already gravely ill. Just hours later, he was dead, suffering from more than 130 injuries.
It's horrific what has happened to what was a defenceless 10-month-old baby. Only his skull and his left arm didn't have fractures.
Finley Bowden was taken into care shortly after birth in February 2020 due to concerns over the couple's drug use, filthy living conditions and a risk of domestic violence. Despite evidence of that continuing drug use as late as September 2020, in October, Derbyshire County Council's recommendation was Finley be returned to his parents. That happened on the 17th of November. A week later was the last time a social worker saw Finley alive. By Christmas Day, he was dead. He'd been in the couple's care for just 39 days. Just 2 days before his death, a social worker came to visit Finley, but the couple made excuses and refused to let them inside the house. Finley had been burnt and beaten and was dying from his injuries. The couple lived in filth and squalor. Police found mouldy milk bottles and evidence of excessive cannabis use. Neighbours say drug dealers often visited the house.
You'd see the cars pull up outside and
drug dealers?
they go to the window, get whatever it was, go back in the house. It was all the time.
Living directly next door and raising a young family, Georgia has found it traumatic.
It was just a baby. How could you do that to a baby? But look at her. We weren't much older than her, really. How could you do that? It's just disgusting. You're meant to protect them, not hurt them.
Another neighbour says warnings about the couple were ignored by Derbyshire Social Services. The latest Ofsted report found staff were constantly overworked with complex cases, and across Britain, the pandemic only increased the pressures on an already struggling workforce.
He was failed by a system, really, that couldn't protect him. And we really want to see significant change in the child protection system, and that needs to happen now. We can't wait until another child dies.
Bowden and Marsden repeatedly lied about the appalling injuries they'd inflicted on a defenceless little boy. His final days at home spent in agony, a place he was supposed to be safe and loved. Sarah Corker, ITV News.
In other news this lunchtime, just as the latest strike action by junior doctors comes to an end, the government is facing the prospect of more walkouts by nurses if members of the Royal College of Nursing vote to reject the government's latest pay offer. Well, ITV News understands that nurses will refuse the deal in the next few hours after a 3-week-long ballot. The result would deal a heavy blow to the government, which had hoped the agreement with nurses would stop bringing an end to the stream of strikes by health workers this winter. Our political correspondent Libby Vina has the latest.
His union may have thought the pay deal was good enough, but Paul Kenyon, an intensive care nurse, is among many who've decided it wasn't.
I voted to reject. It was quite difficult for me, actually. I deliberated it over a long period of time. But ultimately for me, I just didn't feel like the offer was good enough. I actually felt it was a little bit insulting. Given everything that we've done over the last 3 years with the pandemic, and then after the pandemic sort of come to an end and all the hard work in trying to catch up with the backlog of patients, I just felt it was a bit of a kick in the teeth for all of that work that we've done.
It means the 4 days of strikes by junior doctors this week may not be the last disruption the NHS faces. Their dispute is far from resolved, and there's now the prospect of nurses striking again.
I think across the healthcare system we should be pushing for, a recognition of the hours and the work that's been put in both pre and during and post the pandemic. Nurses work exceptionally hard, and I strongly believe, as a colleague working alongside them, they deserve far more than they were offered.
I think we all collectively really fundamentally care about patient care, not just today, not just in the past, but also for the rest of our careers.
Health service leaders are urging both sides to work together to avoid industrial action.
Further industrial action in the health service will have a major impact on our capacity to, on the one hand, meet the demand that presents itself at GP surgeries, A&E departments or whatever, and the other to make inroads into the backlog that we face.
This patient, whose follow-up appointment for cancer surgery was cancelled, supports the nurses but is still worried.
It's a scary thought. I know that they would make sure that emergency care, emergency medicine would be covered, but there's already a backlog from COVID. Appointments and surgeries are still being caught up on. And so any few days of striking would add to that.
Not all unions are expected to reject the deal, but with members of the Royal College of Nursing likely to do so, more strikes certainly can't be ruled out. Libby Vina, ITV News, Westminster.
Well, our Deputy Political Editor Anushka joins us now from University College Hospital in London. Anushka, if nurses do reject this deal, how much of a blow would that be to the government?
Oh, I think it is a major blow. Rishi Sunak has wanted to have this image of getting things done. And one thing that was seen as a success was putting forward an offer to nurses and other NHS workers that most unions recommended to their members, including the RCN. Instead, as Libby said, if RCN reject it, as sources are saying we expect them to, we could have nurses walking out of a hospital like this within weeks because they've still got a strike mandate. That on top of junior doctors, and we've talked about the impact of those strikes this week. Now in government, they knew that junior doctors walking out was really bad, but there was a sense that the public were not quite as sympathetic when it came to doctors, that they thought the 35% pay demand was a little too high. But there is no question that inside government they understand the level of sympathy that there is for nurses, particularly after COVID, and so this is going to be very, very difficult for the Prime Minister.
Anushka, thank you. Meanwhile, it's been announced that civil servants across government departments and other areas, such as the Met Office, will hold more strikes in May and June. Members of the Prospect Union called a pay offer from the government of between 4.5% and 5% an insult. Some potential good news, though. The RMT union is considering a new pay deal from the rail delivery group. The updated offer is for workers at 14 different rail companies. And if accepted, it could see the end of the long-running disruption of the rail network. The US is reeling this lunchtime after a 21-year-old was arrested after the biggest leak of classified documents in a decade. Jack Teixeira is a National Guard airman suspected of disclosing confidential details about the Ukraine war and other spying activities online. It's caused huge embarrassment for the Pentagon in Washington and threatens to strain ties with key allies. Callum Watkinson has the story.
Announced that Jack Teixeira was taken into custody at his family's home in Massachusetts.
Anyone in America who missed it yesterday was waking up this morning to the news that a 21-year-old National Air Guardsman is to be charged with leaking state secrets. Presenters, pundits and the nation are asking each other the same question.
How could something like this happen?
That has been asked again and again since Jack Teixeira's arrest at his home in Massachusetts. He is an IT specialist with security clearance, reported to have been posting classified information on the Discord messaging platform for months. The news of his arrest was delivered by the Attorney General himself.
Today, the Justice Department arrested Jack Douglas Teixeira in connection with an investigation into alleged unauthorized removal, retention, and transmission of classified national defense information.
Though the number and scope of the leaks has not been confirmed by officials, it's thought they include details of Ukrainian military positions. Teixeira has had a presence for years on Discord, a platform popular with gamers. But those who interacted with him there have characterised him as motivated by bravado rather than ideology.
He was a young, charismatic man who loved nature, God, who loved shooting guns and racing cars.
On a visit to Ireland, President Biden downplayed the significance of the leaks.
I'm concerned that it happened, but there's nothing contemporaneous that I'm aware of that is of great consequence.
But the Pentagon called the posts a deliberate criminal act, and Teixeira will appear in court in Boston today. Callum Watkinson, ITV News.
Well, Robert joins us now, and it's fair to say there are a few red faces in Washington today over this, Robert. How did a 21-year-old of such junior rank have access to this kind of information?
Well, as you heard, Lucy, in Callum's report there, that is the question that America and its 18 separate intelligence agencies are all asking. I think the answer is a little bit mundane. Now, Jack Teixeira, yes, was a 21-year-old sort of gamer who wanted to boast about his access, but he also had a strangely significant job. He was sort of a network engineer, an IT specialist within the intelligence wing of the Air National Guard. So yes, he did have access to a large number of kind of very sensitive documents, which he then leaked out onto that platform. The second explanation, I think, is a broader one, which is after the attacks of September the 11th, 2001, there was a very conscious decision that actually the hijackers had been helped by the compartmentalization of top secret information. And therefore there was a deliberate decision right across the US government to share information more widely. Now that's going to be reviewed, of course, all over again. We're going to suffer some whiplash because undoubtedly top secrets are now going to be guarded ever more carefully. Perhaps the most startling statistic in American intelligence is that over 1 million people have access to top secrets. So the surprise is not that Jack Teixeira leaked this information, perhaps it is that it doesn't happen much more often.
Robert in Washington, thank you. Within the last half hour, the European Space Agency has launched a mission to Jupiter and its moons.
3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain.
The Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer is called JUICE, and it's heading to the solar system's biggest planet to see if its ocean-bearing moons could be capable of supporting life. Well, Laura Tobin is in French Guiana, where it's all been happening. Laura, very exciting. What are they hoping this mission will achieve?
There is so much excitement. Can I just say, a moment ago we found out that we have had our separations. The rocket and the actual spacecraft itself have now separated. There were huge cheers in the control room and huge cheers when the rocket launched behind me, making history. This is the very first rocket that Europe have heading to Jupiter. And as you say, they are hoping that they can find signs of life, not just inside the universe, inside our very own solar system. Here is what they are hoping to find on the moons.
So at least 3 of the moons, these big Galilean moons, have liquid water oceans. And these are much, much deeper than the oceans on Earth. And at the bottom of at least one of those oceans, we think, at Europa, that there may be rock at the bottom. So there's minerals in contact with warm water. So there's at least the possibility that these are places where life could develop independently from how it developed on Earth.
There is huge excitement. It was postponed on day 1 because of inclement weather. We were all just shocked into silence, and it actually happened on day 2. The big roar of the rocket was huge. It lit up the sky with these incredible flames and then this incredible cloud on its now mission to Jupiter. And actually, for many people, this is just the beginning of an 8-year journey all the way there. Huge challenges along the way with incredible science to combat that. It's a long way away. They are going Earth to slingshot themselves, to speed up, to head there in 8 years' time. They do that 3 times around Earth and once around Venus. It's also very dark out there, 25 times less daylight than we have on Earth. So they have huge solar panels, 85 meters squared, to get as much energy as they can. As well as that, they also have to deal with extreme heat and extreme cold and the strongest radiation field in the entire universe. So they have used incredible science to make this mission possible. And now for many, the journey is just beginning. I still can't believe I'm so emotional. It's so exciting, and I can't wait for a long time, 8 years' time, but I'll be waiting for the first results to come in.
Laura, thanks for sharing your excitement with us. The trial of a student accused of throwing eggs at the King and Queen consort in November has got underway at York Magistrates Court. 23-year-old Patrick Thelwell was arrested and charged with threatening behaviour after the incident. Well, Tom Barton is in York for us. Tom, what's been said in court this morning?
Well, Patrick Thelwell admits throwing at least 5 eggs at the King and the Queen consort when they visited York last November. But the 23-year-old, who represented himself in court today, has pleaded not guilty, claiming that the court couldn't legitimately try him because the case, like most criminal cases in Britain, is being brought on behalf of the King. He also insisted that his actions were necessary in the face of what he called tyrannical state violence. Now, the court was shown videos of Mr. Thelwell in the aftermath of the incident, asking, "Did I get him?" and saying, "I threw the eggs at him because that's what he deserved." Now, he did admit using low-level violence and shouting obscenities, including claiming that the King was a paedophile. The case concluded this morning. Senior District Judge Paul Goldspring is expected to deliver his verdict this afternoon.
Tom Barton, thank you. And finally, a tale about 2 Hollywood stars that's worthy of a blockbuster movie itself. Matthew McConaughey has told a podcast that he and Woody Harrelson suspect they might be brothers. Warren Nettleford can explain more.
If you squint, can you see a family resemblance? That's the question Woody Harrelson and Matthew McConaughey are asking themselves at the moment.
Just what you think I'd be doing over here? You're not around, Marty. What's our problem? You and me.
For years, the Hollywood actors have been co-stars and firm friends.
If I could just get another shot.
But speaking on a podcast, Matthew McConaughey revealed something his mother said to him and Woody.
In Greece a few years ago, we're sitting around talking about how close we are and our families and et cetera. And my mom is there.
Yeah.
And she says, "Woody, I knew your dad."
Oh.
Everyone was aware of the ellipsis that my mom left after knew. It was a loaded K-N-E-W.
So could this Hollywood bromance be, well, an official bromance? The actor's best known on-screen partnership was in the True Detective series. Any potential big revelation could lead to more questions, though. Woody Harrelson's father, Charles, was a convicted murderer who killed a federal judge. The actor regularly visited him before he died in 2007 behind bars. And so, could a DNA test now be used to confirm what they suspect?
Look, it's a little easier for Wood to say, come on, let's do it, because what's the skin in it for him?
Right.
It's a little harder for me because he's asking me to take a chance to go, wait a minute, you're trying to tell me my dad may not be my dad of 53 years of believing that? I got a little more skin in the game.
The actors are due to appear in the new streaming series, Brothers from Another Mother. Maybe the title could be a clue to their relationship. Warren Nettleford, ITV News.
What a story. That is all we've got time for this lunchtime. Lucrezia will be here at 6:30. Have a great afternoon. Bye-bye for now.
A cold start, with a snow shower spreading quickly across the east. Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.
A very good afternoon to you. Disappointingly dull and damp as we end the week, feeling very much on the cool side given the time of year. And we keep the chilly nights for the time being. Temperatures way lower than we'd like for this point in the spring. This is the earlier satellite and radar picture, an awful lot of cloud cover with some steady, substantial rain across parts of northern England and Wales, as well as through the south east there. Some brighter skies for East Anglia and the far southwest. And brighter skies interrupted by hefty downpours through Scotland and Northern Ireland. These slow-moving, intense and potentially thundery, turning a little wintry across the Highlands there for a time. Elsewhere, well, an awful lot of grey sky, persistent rain, not going anywhere in a hurry, and brisk winds through the south and the southeast. Highs of just 12 or 13 degrees, very much on the cool side, and the rain slow to shift from the east. Clearer skies in the west with some misty low cloud tonight. Temperatures close to freezing with a touch of ground frost in the most prone zones come dawn.
Heinz Seriously Good Mayonnaise sponsors ITV National Weather.